Hello, and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. I think the pre-swell pump for XRP has begun in earnest. XRP suddenly jumped up 1 penny a couple of hours ago, and it's actually been ever since the first pump to 30 cents, the subsequent dip to 24 cents or so. It's gone up about 2 cents in the last 2 weeks, and all the while, Bitcoin has actually gone down in value. And most of the time XRP is just held in value, but it's actually gone up, if you can look, about 2 cents in the last 2 weeks. If you can see that it went way up here to 30 cent, 31 cent, then dumped all the way down to 24 cent on September 24th, and now it's back up to 26 cents after one big jump here and then another big jump here. And all the while, the Bitcoin ratio has been going up. And the Bitcoin ratio has basically achieved where it was at the end of July. Now, it's still about 66% down from the beginning of the year, but it is actually where it was at the end of July. And I believe it will keep going up throughout October and into November because swell is coming up, and we generally do get a small pre-swell pump. Last year was a little different. It suddenly surged over one night from like 20-something cents to 80 cents, dropping down to 50 cents. And then basically holding throughout until 2 weeks until swell, and then it kept going up for a couple of weeks because of all the rumors and stuff and all the hype, and before starting a trend down after the end of the year. And I don't know if we'll see that big of a jump this year, but so far we have actually gone from 2,500 sats to about 3,350 sats, which is a pretty substantial gain. With respect to Bitcoin. Now, with respect to USD, it really hasn't gained that much because Bitcoin has actually gone down, and we're pretty much almost at the same price pre-pump on the USD value. So I am thinking it's getting its pre-swell surge. We're still about a month onto swell, but a lot of the hype and a lot of the articles have actually come out, and we're actually going to talk about the SamsungFinblr thing, which people are speculating uses XRP. I'm not really sure if it does. It really has to do with their credit and debit card prepayments, but we never know. It might actually use XRP. It may not. We'll see in a while. Doesn't really have that much to do with utilization in terms of like driving up utilization. Bitso's 24-hour traffic, or total 24-hour traffic, that's including all the speculative traffic for the MXN corridor, is under $1 million at the time of this recording. So it's not quite due to utilization, but there is a lot of hype, especially with the Anthony Pompliano and Brad Garlinghouse interview, which will be actually made available to the public on Wednesday. I think some people in the XRP community are thinking that Pompliano is going to switch completely over to XRP. I highly doubt that. But something to get excited about. And then the Samsung Pay and Finblr rumor, actually, this was yesterday that actually it came out. Not that many people have actually reported on it, but it actually came out yesterday. And what it really is on Business Wire, the actual partnership, besides on the XRP news sites and maybe a few of the crypto news sites, they say they're speculating that it might use Ripple or XRP. But on Business Wire and CNBC, which I've actually read both, they both say that Samsung Pay users in the US can use their existing eligible prepaid debit or credit cards in Samsung Pay to safely and securely send money in most currencies to their recipients via Finblr's global network. Finblr did become a Ripple partner, and they actually integrated, I think, 2 of their exchanges in the UAE with RippleNet. However, most of these countries I don't know if any of these countries are within the UAE they send. Most of these countries are not, so I'm not really sure if this is using RippleNet at all. But it is money transfer using pre-registered debit or credit cards in Samsung Pay. There is actually some speculation there. I'm not going to say if it's yes or no. I think if it is using Ripple, it's using Xcurrent. Well, it's all like RippleNet now, but I don't think it's using the cryptocurrency yet. But I guess people think that it actually opens up a possibility in the future. So Finblr is going to be at Money 2020. But the article by Business Wire, which actually states more of like the details of the partnership, says the money transfer service is powered by Travelex, and it makes international payments easier than ever right from Samsung Pay app. And it uses pre-existing eligible pre-registered credit or debit cards. If you don't have one of those, you can't use this service because it only runs through pre-registered debit or credit cards right now. So it may use RippleNet. may not. It doesn't really say anything about RippleNet or XRP in the Business Wire article or the CNBC article. And the articles that actually do mention Ripple or XRP within this partnership are the cryptocurrency websites, and they're basically just speculating that it might use RippleNet to some degree. All of them say they don't really know, but it could. So I'm not going to say whether it does or it doesn't. We can say that pay users in the U.S. can now send money recipients in 47 countries, including India, Mexico, China, Philippines, and major markets in Africa, with plans to expand to other markets. So I think at most it uses RippleNet right now. Mexico and Philippines, I suppose they could, on the U.S. corridor, use XRP. India, China, and markets in Africa, they don't really have a corridor for that yet. Well, you can't really do it in India and China right now because India still hasn't lifted that banking ban. And China just doesn't really allow any exchanges. So those two are out. But Mexico and Philippines, it could use XRP, I guess. But there's really no evidence that it actually does. Because the two things that Finblr actually integrated into the RippleNet are the two of the exchanges in the UAE. We'll have to have further confirmation, but this is something that people are speculating on. I think the other thing is Pompliano's thing with Brad Garlinghouse that I actually mentioned earlier. Plus, the overall sentiment when we get towards swell, when we get like maybe a month and a half towards swell, is actually generally fairly positive because people expect something like a big bombshell to actually drop at swell. I'm not sure if it will or not, but I do see XRP's price actually continuing to rise in terms of Bitcoin, ratio up to the swell conference. After the swell conference, it might maintain or even go up a little more based on what was said at swell and people's sentiments. But I think this is much more akin to last year at 2018 than really 2017, because 2017 it basically completely stayed stable and then just like shot up in one huge spike immediately. Whereas this is more of like a slow creep up like 2018, up to swell, and then after swell as well, continuing creep up. So I'm looking at maybe a target of about 40 cents towards the end of the month as we go into swell, or like a 45 cent maximum, because right now at this rate of increase we're getting maybe like a penny a week, but it might actually accelerate into the middle of October, and also as we get November towards swell, as people get more and more hype about XRP because of the upcoming possible swell announcements. So I think optimistically it could reach about 45 cents. I think optimistically Samsung could be using RippleNet in some of these corridors. And yeah, it's just pretty good news for Ripple, especially for the short term. If you haven't sold your XRP yet, I wouldn't really sell it right now because we're only about a month until swell. I would definitely, if you're looking for short-term trade and looking for profits, I would really look for the price to actually peak around swell time or a little bit after swell time, and that's when I would actually, at this point, sell my swing stack if you haven't sold it yet. If you already sold it, if you already sold a swing stack, I don't really ever recommend you selling all the XRP, but if you have sold the swing stack already, you probably have to wait until after swell for the price to actually come down a little bit. You might get lucky and it might come down like as we get really, really close and people want to cash out because of the hype. But my guess is you're going to have to wait until after swell. There might be a sudden drop. I mean, just watch the price suddenly drop just to counter my point here. I can't predict that, but logic says, and not, the market isn't really completely logical, but logic says it should actually go up towards swell. There was a dip to about 2,600 sats, like briefly for a couple of hours, a day or so, that you could have bought in at. But if you didn't take that chance to actually buy back in from the drop to about 31 to 2650 on the recent pump, then you might actually have to wait until after swell to buy back in at a lower Satoshi ratio. Of course, a lot of the reason for the Bitcoin ratio increase, if you're trading with BTC, is because Bitcoin has actually fallen drastically, and because of the swell hype and the swell excitement, I think XRP has actually held its price because of that. And we saw that like kind of before swell last year as well as we saw that after the initial pump and drop back down, it didn't drop all the way, and it actually held about 50 cents throughout swell, and then even after swell with the whole 589 nonsense stuff, $50 589 nonsense stuff, some people think the hype actually kind of drove the prices then, and it actually lasted until end of November. And then, towards the end of the year, when none of that stuff became true, it slowly started its way downward. So this year, I don't think enough people are going to believe like the whole 589 end of the year hype, but they are really looking forward to swell. So I would actually expect the price to keep cresting up until swell. So that's the whole XRP news for today. It's pretty cool. For those of you who have been waiting for XRP to make a move up, nothing to quite celebrate yet, because it's basically, in terms of USD value, it basically is at the same value it was about a month ago. But in terms of Bitcoin ratio, it has gone up significantly. And I think you can probably look forward to at least a few more increases before a month from now when swell actually happens. So that's the report for today. Let me know what you think. And mainly, I do these videos for traders, not for like holders who basically think they're going to be extremely rich in like, 3 weeks or something. They can keep thinking that if they want. I don't think it's going to happen, but they can keep thinking that if they want. But this is mainly like advice for traders who are actually interested in making some profit within the foreseeable future. So that is the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe and hit that bell notification button. Thank you and have a nice day.